Colombian rescue teams recovered the bodies of 2 trapped miners, but 8 are still missing. Argentinians protest against strict coronavirus measures as intensive care units are filling up. And Zimbabwe celebrates its 41st independence anniversary. Hello and welcome to teleSUR. I'm Jose Daniel Lopez in Quito, Ecuador, and this is from the south. Rescue teams in Colombia have recovered the bodies of 2 out of 11 miners who were trapped by heavy flooding in late March. Authorities have found the 2 bodies after 22 days of searching near the town of Neira in the department of Caldas. The 2 men were part of a group of 11 miners who were trapped around 17 meters deep in an illegal gold mine after heavy rains triggered flash floods in the area. The search continues for the rest of the trapped miners.
Well, the hope is that they deliver him to us. They will not deliver him today, but at least they will take him out of here, out of the mine. To identify him, they will take him to Manizales, and in Manizales there will be a process, because they send me to do a DNA test, and that is how they will identify him.
Colombian police have clashed with protesters at a rally against COVID-19 lockdown measures. Protesters have marched in the capital Bogota and blocked traffic as they demonstrate against the economic impact of coronavirus restrictions. The police used extensive force to try dispersing protesters. The government has recently imposed new restrictions on movement and also nightly curfews in municipalities where intensive care units are near full capacity. According to health authorities, nearly 17,000 new cases and 380 deaths were reported in Colombia over the last 24 hours.
The disease is very terrible. We aren't denying that. I lived it. Last year I was in bed for 15 days because of the coronavirus. But I'll tell you what's stronger than the disease, the economic crisis. Because if you're hungry, you cannot live.
Hundreds of people in Argentina have taken to the streets of Buenos Aires to protest against coronavirus restrictions. Argentines around capital Buenos Aires are rebelling against tightened pandemic restrictions brought back this week as daily COVID-19 cases surged to record highs. President Alberto Fernandez announced new restrictions for the Buenos Aires metropolitan area where 15 million inhabitants live. Last Wednesday, extending a nighttime curfew and shuttering schools for the next 2 weeks, among other measures. The new restrictions comes as daily cases hit a record of 27,000 earlier this week, pushing the total tally over 2.6 million cases, while deaths are nearing 59,000.
Let the school reopen. Let the children be in school, not behind a computer, in the school, as they should be, as it has always been. We leave them uneducated. We drive them into ignorance, and we will create generations of morally and intellectually children. That's why we are protesting, because these children are denied the essential right of education.
In Peru, about 100 demonstrators have rallied in capital Lima, alleging electoral fraud and calling for new presidential elections. Protesters marched to the National Jury of Elections, demonstrating against the results of the first round of presidential elections held a week ago. Far left unionist Pedro Castillo and right-wing populist Keiko Fujimori will run for the presidency of Peru in a second round of voting on June 6th. After the results of the first round showed them pulling ahead of the other 16 candidates.
Fujimorism is red-hot corruption, 100%. We have not come to support Pedro Castillo. We are neither with the right nor with the left. Like the old Peruvians who used to say, "Move forward, Peruvians," at a winning pace. We are for that, for Peru.
We want the votes to be recounted again or a new election if possible.
And Peruvian ex-president Martín Vizcarra has been barred from public office for 10 years over a vaccine scandal. The president has been accused of being part of a group of 470 people who were secretly vaccinated against the coronavirus before the official start of the country's immunization campaign. However, the former president said he was taking part in a clinical trial. Vizcarra will not be able to occupy the deputy seat he won in legislative elections held last Sunday at the same time as the first round of a presidential election. He became president in 2018 and was impeached on November 2020 by Congress on charges of corruption, which he denies. Congress has also sanctioned 2 former ministers accused of having been improperly vaccinated. Health authorities in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro have started vaccinating teachers for the first time. Teachers are considered a high priority group as the city's council pushes to reopen schools which have been closed during a lockdown. Teachers and other educational professionals 55 or older were scheduled to be vaccinated first, with younger teachers due to get their jobs next week. Public schools reopening has been a controversial matter in Rio de Janeiro, as deaths from the coronavirus in Brazil are currently numbering approximately 3,000 a day.
The child that does not know how to write, that can do the handwriting movement, I put him on my lap and hold his hand. When it's time to read, I notice that if he's on my lap, it works better. But the pandemic took all this from us. It is very discouraging to see the child sitting down, cornered, without being able to play.
We'll take a short break now. More news after this. Welcome back. Syria is set to hold presidential elections on May 21st. The elections are widely expected to give President Bashar Assad a 7-year term. It is unclear whether any candidates will run against him, but the parliament said they can present their nomination to the Constitutional High Court starting Monday. Syria has been in civil war since 2011, when Arab Spring-inspired protests against the Assad family rule turned into an armed insurgence in response to a brutal military crackdown.
I invite those who wish to run for the position of president of the Syrian Arab Republic to submit their candidacies to the Supreme Constitutional Court within a 10-day period starting Monday morning, April 19th. The Syrian citizens living abroad will be able to vote at Syrian embassies on Thursday, May 20, 2021. The citizens residing in Syria will be able to vote on Wednesday, May 26, 2021.
Cape Verde citizens have gone to the polls to elect a new parliament. The ruling Movement for Democracy Party is pitted against its main challenger, the African Party for the Independence of Cape Verde. About 392,000 registered voters are expected to cast their ballots in one of Africa's small countries, with a population of about 500,000 people. Cape Verde has a semi-parliamentary system in which the Prime Minister wields executive power, while the President plays the part of arbitrator in the event of intractable disputes. Election results are expected to be announced overnight Sunday.
The vote is quiet. People are already informed. In Cape Verde, everyone knows what they want. We hope that they will vote consciously and that they will see which decisions are priority for Cape Verde, namely employment, security, and development of our country.
Zimbabwe has celebrated its 41st independence anniversary with a call by President Emerson Mnangagwa for the nation to keep safeguarding its sovereignty. Zimbabwe obtained its political independence from British colonial rule in 1980 after a decade of struggle fighting for liberation. In his speech, the president said that his government was committed to implement measures for countering inflation, which had become a major source of economic instability for the country. This year's Independence Day was once again commemorated virtually due to COVID-19 pandemic.
My fellow Zimbabweans, commemoration of our National Independence Day is, in essence, a celebration of the victory attained in the liberation armed struggle fought by our gallant sons and daughters of this soil. The importance of protecting the gains of this hard-won independence can therefore not be overemphasized. It therefore comes as a befitting honor to construct the iconic statue of Mbuyane in Harare. The monument will be a permanent reminder and a towering statement of motivation for future generations on the importance of serving your country wholeheartedly and defending it with unflinching patriotism and loyalty.
And Zimbabwe's government has released thousands of prisoners under a presidential amnesty to reduce the spread of COVID-19 in the country's overcrowded jails. Zimbabwe's prisons have the capacity to hold about 17,000 inmates, but they have currently housed about 22,000 prisoners. Authorities have also suspended visits to prisons as part of measures to combat the spread of the coronavirus. Zimbabwe has so far recorded over 37,500 cases and more than 1,500 deaths.
The amnesty will go a long way in reducing our prison population, and that obviously means a reduction in the expenditure part of the prisons. And also, in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's a very, very huge advantage to us.
The body of Mali rebel leader Ibrahim Olsidati, who was shot dead Tuesday by unknown assailants in the capital Bamako, has been flown to Timbuktu for burial. His body will be transferred to Verde in central Mali for his funeral. Olsidati was a signatory to a crucial 2015 peace accord and the rotating president of the coordination of Aswad movements, a mostly ethnic Tuareg alliance that rose up against the central government in 2012. His killing comes as Mali remains in trouble with transition authorities running the administration after a junta overthrew a civilian government last August.
My first wish is that the Arab community can remain united to face new challenges, because new challenges are to arise of challenges, but also new challenges that we must face together with Mali.
In South Africa, hundreds of patients have been evacuated from a hospital in Johannesburg after a fire broke out. About 700 patients, including those with COVID-19, have been moved from the Charlotte Mackele Hospital to nearby public hospitals. No injuries or casualties have been reported. The fire has been contained, but the hospital is closed for 7 days. Early Saturday morning, the fire caused the third floor of the hospital's parking garage to collapse. 60 firefighters have been battling the blaze through the night. The fire started Friday morning and had been extinguished by the afternoon, but then it restarted again in the evening and continued burning overnight.
This is one of our preeminent facilities. This is one of the top class public hospitals that has developed lots of innovations in the treatment of COVID-19. Amongst the patients who have been transferred, we had 13 patients who were COVID-19 patients. 2 of them were in the ICU and 11 in the general wards.
Tens of thousands of people have fled to the Nigerian town of Damascus following terrorist attacks that killed more than 20 people. Fighters from the Islamic State stormed the town in Borno State 3 times in a week to strike a military garrison, torching homes, a police station, and a UN office. The attacks have underscored the ability to launch sustained strikes at the Nigeria's armed forces more than a decade into granting insurgency. In the latest violence on Wednesday, militants assaulted the army base before being forced back into Damascus town, where at least 18 people were killed, according to local officials and military sources. The president of the Republic of Congo, Denis Sassou Nguesso, was sworn in for a new 5-year term this Friday after being re-elected on March 21st in his 4th successive win since 2002. As part of his inauguration speech, the president said that his new mandate will focus on the agricultural revolution that the country needs.
We will have it to develop a national anti-corruption policy and strengthen the resources available to the high authority, the General Inspectorate of Finance and the General State Audit. This ambition of food independence will create jobs for young people who will actively participate not in the agriculture of our ancestors, but in a modernized and mechanized agriculture.
We have more stories coming up. Stay with us. Welcome back. Myanmar's military junta is planning to release more than 23,000 prisoners nationwide even as the military continues to detain anti-coup protesters. Myanmar typically grants an annual amnesty to thousands of protesters to mark its traditional Buddhist New Year holiday. It remains unclear whether anti-junta protesters or journalists jailed covering the coup will be among those freed. However, the junta has also been issuing nightly arrest warrants on state-run media, targeting celebrities, influencers, journalists, and activists. By Friday night, they totaled 380, including some 80 doctors from attempting to deteriorate peace and stability.
We are free now, so we have to think about what should we do, how we should do it, and what should be done now. Many of my comrades and heroes have died from the crackdown, and some of them are behind bars at the moment. We were released after we had been in prison for a quarter of our sentences, with a condition that we must not repeat the same crime, which is to criticize the military again.
India's government has imposed a weekend curfew in the capital, New Delhi, to fight against the spread of COVID-19. Authorities have announced stay-home orders for the weekend, though essential workers are able to move around if they have a pass from local officials. Restaurants, shopping centers, gyms, and spas were ordered to close from 10 p.m. local time on Friday until 5 a.m. on Monday. The move comes after similar measures were imposed in the worst-hit state of Maharashtra, home of the financial capital Mumbai, while dozens of other towns and cities have imposed nighttime curfews. Health authorities on Friday reported more than 234,000 daily new cases across India. Iran says some progress has been made in talks aimed at bringing the United States back into the 2015 nuclear deal. Iran's top nuclear negotiators said in Vienna that parties can already start working on a joint draft text. Iran has been negotiating with the five countries that remain in the agreement: France, Germany, Britain, Russia, and China, in Vienna over the past 2 weeks. Diplomats are now taking part in expert-level working groups to discuss sanction lifting and nuclear issues until the end of next week.
It seems that a new understanding between parties is being formed, and all parties share the same ultimate goal now. The path to be taken is now better known as well. We think that maybe the talks have reached a state where parties can begin working on a mutual draft text. The writing of the text can begin at least in the areas that mutual agreement exists.
Libya has launched its COVID-19 vaccination program for the general population. The campaign kicked off in the capital Tripoli, starting with the elderly and healthcare workers. The vaccines are going to be rolled out for the rest of the country in the coming days. Those over 70 will get the AstraZeneca jab, while the Sputnik 5 vaccine will be administered to medical personnel and those aged 50 to 60. Libya has so far received 400,000 doses, including 200,000 doses the Sputnik 5 shots, 57,600 AstraZeneca jabs, and 150,000 from China's Sinovac. The North African country has been registering nearly 1,000 cases per day in recent weeks.
Today is the official launch of the national vaccination campaign against COVID-19 in Libya, and more specifically in Tripoli, the capital of Libya. The Russian vaccine, Sputnik V, is available for people under 60 years old. The British vaccine, AstraZeneca, is available for people over 60 years old, as well as the Chinese vaccine, Sinovac. All the vaccines are distributed in a special way, targeting different age groups.
Some Afghan citizens have blamed the United States for causing more conflicts in their country, as the Biden administration said to pull out troops in September. Residents of the capital, Kabul, say that the U.S. did not bring any peace to their country, but rather made the security situation worse. U.S. President Joe Biden announced on Wednesday that all troops will be withdrawn from Afghanistan by September 11. However, many Afghans are skeptic whether this will happen, as the U.S. has been misgiven in the past about a complete military withdrawal.
They haven't brought peace to us. The security situation here is increasingly bad. American troops overthrew the Taliban and then brought extremist groups or attack extremist groups, and then brought the Taliban here. Things like this happen all the time.
On Friday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov announced the expulsion of 10 United States diplomats and sanctions against 8 U.S. officials in response to new sanctions imposed on the country by the Biden administration on Thursday.
We will respond to this measure in a tit-for-tat manner. We will ask 10 U.S. diplomats in Russia to leave the country.
On Thursday, U.S. Ambassador to Moscow John Sullivan was summoned to the Russian Foreign Ministry to be briefed after the U.S. announced new sanctions and the expulsion of 10 Russian diplomats in retaliation for what was described as an electoral interference and other hostile activities. Russia has denied the accusations. The new wave of sanctions came amidst escalating tensions in recent weeks, with Ukraine reinforcing its military presence on its borders with Russia, as well as reports of the deployment of 2 United States warships to the Black Sea, a move which was later cancelled. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga arrived at the White House on Friday to become the first foreign leader to hold face-to-face talks with U.S. President Joe Biden since taking office. The coronavirus pandemic, climate change, the Tokyo Olympics, and the situation in Taiwan were discussed in the talks as the Biden administration continues to turn its foreign policy priorities towards the Indo-Pacific and U.S. allies there in order to continue the political pressure on China. Biden and Suga were also set to announce a $2 billion Japanese investment in 5G telecommunications to counter the growing technological boost of China's Huawei technologies. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian warned Washington and Tokyo to avoid wars and actions that interfere in China's internal affairs and harm the country's interests. China has called out the Japanese ambassador in Beijing in protest against the decision to dump contaminated water from the Fukushima nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean. Assistant Foreign Minister Wao Xiaohao reported Friday that China urged Japan to cancel the undertaking. Instead of taking unilateral decisions, Japan should establish a joint working group with the framework of international institutions, including Chinese experts, the minister added. And we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories in our website at telesurenglish.net. And follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Jose Daniel Lopez. Thank you for watching.